We are creating a platform for those who are curious, one that tells the story from the artist's perspective. Moments in time captured from the innovators who are reshaping dance, music, theater, and the visual arts. This is the Working Artist Project.
Today's episode is special. I know I say that every week, but today is a very good one because I get to sit down with one of my very close friends, Mr. Gregory Agid, and we discuss life, man. So we talk about his up-and-coming record. We talk about love. We talk about New Orleans. We talk about the importance of mentorship. We talk about success and failure. So many topics are covered in this short amount of time, and I know that you guys are going to love it. So help me welcome Gregory Agid to the Working Artist Project.
Good afternoon, everybody.
So, if y'all don't know, Greg is he's a unicorn of sorts, man. He plays the clarinet, and he's like a grown man, you know.
What does that mean?
I'm just saying, it's not many. You know, it's difficult to find people who are above the age of 10 that play clarinet. No offense, it's just not a popular instrument.
I don't even know what to say to that, man. This conversation is going to get way too casual. I mean, you're correct though. That's definitely I'm definitely a unicorn in that sense.
Yeah, man. So recently, I guess the most recent thing for you is your record. This new record, "Words Are Not Enough." Can you kind of like give us a brief, description of what that means? Words are not enough, and how you came up with the concept for the record.
Well, this particular record is a culmination of, many years of experiences, musical and non-musical. And, the idea behind Words Are Not Enough really comes from the fact that, sometimes we try to articulate things as people and we don't really have the facility or language or ability to really communicate that to ourselves and to the people around us. And as musicians, especially as a clarinet player, I think a lot of times I'm able to more effectively communicate my thoughts and feelings in the context of music, as opposed to maybe verbally, like I'm doing now. And so, really the idea behind the record was to create an atmosphere or a palette for the audience to kind of put their own thoughts and ideas to the music. I think a lot of times when we listen to music with lyrics, the song is telling you what to think. The song is telling you how to feel. And when you have this instrumental music, it's really kind of it's very intimidating to the audience sometimes because it lets your mind wander. In addition to being present to the music, you have to fill in the blanks yourself. And so sometimes I think that can be rather intimidating. So again, with this record, I really wanted to create a palette of emotions, and where everyone can kind of come to their own understanding of what these songs mean to them.
I think you left out the most important part.
What's that?
It's about love, man.
No, it's true. A lot of this originally, the record, and it's funny because having this conversation now, things are always changing. Things are always in flux. And so when this, I'm in a different state of mind today than I was a year and a half ago when the record was recorded, and the whole process up to this point. My life has changed a lot, and everything comes down to love. And at that particular time in my life, I think I was dealing with a lot of heartbreak and a lot of kind of a lot of emotional baggage tied to this idea of love and relationship and things like that. And what's actually really funny is that, each one of these songs has some type of meaning, and it is definitely connected to a relationship, connected to a woman, or, connected to people in my life. But, it's like, it was almost like a search for something. And since the record came out, I realized the whole time, like, the person I was searching for was me. you know. So it's almost it's kind of funny to like look back at the work you've created and almost, you know, it was like it had such a huge therapeutic value, and it definitely it meant so much to me, but it's almost like that meaning has changed over time now. And it's funny, like with the record, like the first track on the CD is a song called "Nevermore Will I Fall in Love" by the great Harold Batiste. And Harold Batiste was a saxophonist and of no relation to Alvin Batiste. And he was a great New Orleans composer and just wrote a plethora of amazing music. And this first composition, you know, the lyrics, the song are "Nevermore Will I Fall in Love." And at that time, it just meant so much to me. Just what, you know, the idea of falling in love. You know, Darrian, when is falling ever a good thing?
Never,
right? So we put so much emphasis on this idea that it's like we're gonna fall in love, and it's like, man, we're never excited about falling for anything. You know, like we don't want to like walk down the street and fall on our face or all this kind of stuff. So, you know, a lot of this record was kind of like almost like a maturing process, and, you know, coming to this place where like I would like to rise to love. You know, I would like to consciously choose to love as opposed to being like a victim of this situation. I think a lot of language with love is very reactionary, almost that like we're on this roller coaster that we have no control. And I don't mean control in like a negative way where we're like trying to, I don't know, you know, I think that the word control can be a very negative thing too. But we don't always, we have a lot more say in the direction of our lives and relationships with people than we want to acknowledge. And, you know, in love should be a conscious decision rather than something put on you.
See, what y'all don't know is me and Greg, we have these conversations about every other day. So, man, why don't we just get right into it and let them hear this one, Nevermore.
Let's do it.
I would say, you know, another interesting thing about this record is, unlike most or some jazz records out today, this was more of a collaborative effort on the writing front. It's not, we don't only hear from your voice, right? And I think that's important, especially when you're dealing with love, because there's so many dimensions to love. So basically, we got to hear the love perspective from multiple people, from at least 5 or 6 people on this record, right?
Certainly. And yeah, man, it's one of the, you know, it's so amazing to hear everyone's perspective on a subject. You know, again, like I have my idea of what, you know, I'm going through, and you know, Darrian, you know, you contributed a song, and our bassist Max Moran and Josh Starkman each contributed, you know, a composition pertaining to, you know, their perspective on this subject. And so it's really, you know, I love working with people, and I love, you know, one of my favorite things to do is listen. And so I really want to get as many people involved in projects as possible.
Yeah, man, that's great. So I want to talk about a little bit about, you know, New Orleans and like the influence that New Orleans had on you and how it's changed over the years and where it is now.
Man, you know, I have, you know, someone told me something that really, really like resonated with me. And it was a guitar player who lived in New York for a couple of years. And I asked him how he liked, so he currently lives in New Orleans. And I was like, how do you like New Orleans compared to New York? And he was like, you know, New Orleans is the only city that loved me back.
Wow.
or you know what he said? He said, I love New York, but New York didn't love me back. He said, I came to New Orleans and I love New Orleans and New Orleans loved me back. And New Orleans is a very unique city. And I think that statement, there's so much truth in that statement based on if you love New Orleans and if you partake in the community and if you contribute and listen and become part of New Orleans will love you back. And I think a lot of my life journey has been a process of giving to this city and to the community. And it's also been a process of receiving the love back from New Orleans and the community.
So what kind of projects are you involved in to enhance that community that you're a part of there?
Well, you know, we can even like just start from way back in the beginning, you know. I grew up in Hawaii and I moved to New Orleans in 1999 when I was 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And I had a very interesting upbringing. And, you know, my parents are from Europe. They're, you know, I'm a first generation American. I grew up in Hawaii and, you know, again, I moved to New Orleans. So I've always had this like kind of outsider perspective. You know, I've never really felt, I don't know how to say this, but, you know, like really, really tied into like us. Like I've been afforded the opportunity to create my identity. I've never really had to say like, oh, you know, like I am from this place. This is my family. And I'm not like a 10th generation New Orleanian or any of those things. And so coming to New Orleans, I feel like I didn't have like a preconceived idea of what the city was. And I came from a very, you know, welcome to New Orleans. And it's been like a learning experience ever since in really trying to understand what this city is. So my relationship with the city really started with listening. And when I came here, I had the unbelievable fortune of being involved with this community that was completely outside of anything I had ever known in life. And that was meeting people like Alvin Batiste, Clyde Kerr Jr., Kid Jordan, Harold Batiste, Ellis Marcellus, Alvin Fielder, Jackie Harris. And that community really opened up my world.
Right.
And again, also like being white, I think like this is something that I really haven't had the opportunity to talk much about. Maybe we can kind of dig into this a little later, but I think it's like very pertinent to the current state of our country right now.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, I'm of European heritage. I moved to New Orleans, which has a, you know, I mean, I don't know exactly what the percentage is, but there's probably you know, the majority of the city is Black. Mm-hmm. And I think it was such an eye-opening, unique experience for me to have had so much access and opportunity. And I mean, maybe just to be accepted into this family that was outside of something maybe I would have known as like a white person. So, you know, my tale of New Orleans starts with listening and learning from these people of the community.
So you talked about your parents being immigrants and you coming into this situation and adapting to the culture around you. Like, you know, in our current president seems to vilify immigrants, at least some of them, which is very interesting. You know what I mean? What do you think about that? And like, how does that resonate with you being a direct descendant of immigrant parents?
You know, I've never really identified strongly. Like, I'm not like, hey, I'm of French heritage and I'm going to stand up for my Frenchness or anything like that. Or, you know, my mom is from Switzerland. Like, I've always been proud of, you know, like being French and Swiss, but it's never been something that's like a defining characteristic in my mind of who I am. You know, I consider myself American, and that's really just the end of the story for me. Like, I'm an American, and, you know, everyone around me in this community, you know, we're all brothers and sisters. And I think that having that clear palette is like a very unique opportunity to kind of like, again, not having that baggage of the history of my family being tied into like Americana and all that kind of stuff. It allowed me an opportunity to really like recreate or not recreate, but like create this new life almost. I mean, people who are American, they have hundreds of years of American history and ancestry, and changing that is difficult.
Mm.
Whether you talk about whether you talk about the people who are direct descendants of Confederate officers and things of that sort, that's their heritage too. And just in the same way that African Americans are descendants of slaves, I think a lot of what's happening right now is that people are trying to redefine themselves or hold on to the past.
The interesting thing about this phrase you just said, I am American, like that's the part that, this Trump is trying to take away from these immigrants. Like they can't only be American. They have to be Mexican American, or they have to be, this American or that American, or like if Afghani American, like, he's taking the American out of it. Like he just won't let people be Americans. And I don't know if ever in American history have we let non-European descent people just be Americans. You know what I mean? Even Native Americans just can't be Americans. They not even Americans. They Native American. You know what I mean? So you got to put something in front of every American except for the European American.
And this again like comes back to the larger idea of words are not enough. And we have all these. I read an amazing passage in this meditation book, and it was talking about language, and it was saying that like the value of mindfulness is about just experiencing the experience without putting a label on it. Like looking at the moon and realizing that the word moon is a label we put on the moon, and we can either stare at the moon and think to ourselves, moon, 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 or we can just be. And I think a lot of this, when we're dealing with this language, like Native American, African American, these are like it's almost like psychological warfare, in the sense that you have somebody who came around and put this label on something that just is. And outside of the label, there are no labels without us. The human being coming around and putting these words on everything. Things just exist. And so what's happening now is that I think as we need to redefine these labels that we have. And I think these different communities are so used to again like these words that are in our heads. We need to get to what is behind the word. What is. And I think a lot of these labels are meant to like keep our minds in cages.
Damn, that's deep, man. Since you mentioned words are not enough, I want to go there now, because, I want to listen to this song, because I think it will resonate with my listeners, and they can feel how it can be a romantic thing, but it can exemplify what we just talked about here, how the crisis of identity can separate people, and we're in that song kind of like embodies that feeling of separation.
Yeah, with this composition, I really wanted to create a palette of emotion, and this music is not like it's not an AABA form. It's not me playing a minor pentatonic scale. This song is an emotional palette, and however the song resonates with you is appropriate. But for me, this song is kind of like a song that represents despair, confusion, a longing, and kind of just this kind of these darker emotions and things of that sort. And for me, this was like a release of those feelings. And now that it's again in the sense that it's been a release, like it's gone now. Like I don't necessarily identify with it, but it was something that resonated with me very strongly at a point in my life.
All right, let's check it out. for the rest of that, they got to buy the record.
Yeah, definitely.
You gotta go over to Greg's website, download the record on iTunes or anywhere it is online. Just Google Gregory Agid. Words are not enough. Yeah, man. To me, that song is, it's full of so much emotion, man.
And it's funny because again with the whole concept. You mentioned those words like Native American, African American. To me, those words are also the same thing as augmented fifth, altered scale, and I think a lot of like what's been maybe lost in we'll say this jazz community that we exist in. So many of us know this music strictly through the institution, and we were raised being in middle school jazz band class, and we went to science class, we went to math class, we went to English class, and then we went to jazz band class. And our relationship with this music comes from labels. And I think a lot of the value of meeting people like Alvin Batiste and Kid Jordan and my mentors, my family really, is that these guys had such a deep connection with this music on just on a, I don't know how to say it, just on a, they just played the music from an emotional place, unhinged by labels. And there's so many great musicians out there. And I was having a conversation with Wendell Brunius, this great trumpet player, yesterday, and he told me, he's like, just because you can play all the scales in the world, just because you can play these solos and these songs, doesn't mean you're playing music. And to me, we've reached this point in the music that we play where the music it's technically on a whole nother level, and it's very difficult to play. It's very complex, but it means nothing. And I think that's like one of the struggle as an artist, is finding that balance between being creative, doing things that are new, and not our success is not purely defined by how many people buy a record or any of those things, but we have to find some type of balance, because art is nothing without an audience.
Exactly.
And I think it's so important to human connection is so important, and that's something that I am trying to involve more in my life. And when you're at a gig, to look people in the eyes, to have people with you in that moment, like sharing that space, versus being an artist that has this like, oh, you don't like my music, like, fuck you. And there's something, I mean, I find myself, I really love those experiences when I see shows and I am right there with the artist, on the same page, and we're all, everyone is together. I love that. So we can even, like, again, this idea for me of words are not enough is kind of, I guess, has been the theme of my life, and I'm trying to figure out how this concept applies to like all aspects of my life. And to me, we're creating this artificial separation amongst ourselves. Again, with those words you said earlier, the Native American, African American, white, black, those are self-imposed separations. And, again, when we're playing music, we are creating a space in time where we are connected with each other, where we remember that connection.
I want to switch gears. And not so much, but because just a minute ago you mentioned Mr. Bat and Alvin Fielder and a host of all these mentors you had over the years, man. I want to really get into Mr. Bat and the effect that he had on your life, and if you can kind of tell my audience who he is and what he did and why he's important to you and so many others that came up through Louisiana.
So, it's I feel like anything I do right now is not going to give true justice to the magnitude of Mr. Alvin Batiste and his spirit and his character. He's one of those people that you just kind of had to meet. And I remember the first time I met him, I just knew that there was something special about this person. And I always had a profound respect for my time, the time that I spent with him. I remember always being very eager to just be around him. I loved the time I spent around Alvin Batiste. I absolutely loved it. And I remember telling myself that this was the first man that I had ever met in my life that walked the walk. You know, not only I felt like I had met a lot of people who could talk that would just talk, but he was the first person I had really encountered that could talk the talk and walk the walk. You know, he always practicing. He was a man of great integrity. He was a very intelligent man, and he had a way of inspiring others by his example to be the same. You know, he was never like a person that was like, today you have to practice your 2/5s. Why aren't you practicing your 2/5s? You know, what are you doing? You should be doing this. You should be doing that. Or he was never, he was a man that would just look at you and be like, and then he would just start practicing. And you knew in that moment that, okay, I should be practicing too.
He led by example, you mean?
He led by example. Yeah. And he was the first person I think I had really met in my life that displayed integrity, discipline, and really led his life by example.
Okay, cool.
You know, and again, like, you know, Alvin Batiste, you know, you can list off the things that I'm aware of that he did, you know, like he was the first African-American soloist with the Louisiana Symphony. You know, he played the Mozart concerto in a time of, like, you know, segregation in the South and all that kind of stuff. You know, he founded the Southern Jazz Department, which is probably one of the first jazz education programs in the country.
Yeah, we're talking about the university, Southern University.
Southern, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, he's responsible for teaching people like Donald Harrison, Branford Marsalis, Wynton. I mean, the list goes on and on. Randy Jackson, you know, everybody. And so, you know, anyone who's come out of New Orleans has some type of relationship with Alvin Batiste.
That's deep, man.
And, you know, things with Mr. Bat were always deep. And, you know, he was a very spiritual man. I know he partook in I don't know exactly if it's a religious organization, but they're called the Roja Krishnas. And he, you know, it's a very spiritual organization. And this man, he was always planting seeds in us. You know, he would tell us things that were just so profound and above and beyond our comprehension. As kids, you know, he would look at us and say, like, hypnosis is a profound colloquialism that expresses an abstract truth. Ignorance in action is a powerful thing. And it's funny because, like, as a child, you're like, what the hell does that mean? Control your subjective mind. And these are things that, like, I'm 30 years old now, and there's not a week that doesn't go by that I don't think of one of these things that he used to tell me all the time. You know, how does ignorance in action apply to my life at 30? You know, these are lessons and these are ideas they're going to travel with me my entire life. And at every point in my life, they're going to change in significance and meaning to me.
Wow. I'm getting inspired just listening to you tell a story about this man.
He was amazing. And it was like, you know, and I think it was so interesting because when I was at NOCCA, and I think it was a very good time to be at NOCCA because there was so many different perspectives on educating. We were really getting a well-rounded musical education. You know, we would be bombarded by this, you know, a very spiritual side of the music by Mr. Alvin Batiste, and then, you know, Michael Polera was coming from a very, he definitely has a lot of integrity, but coming from a different perspective. You know, he was, you know, trained at Berkeley and came in, And so we were getting like a very well-rounded perspective on this music. So not only did we know our 2/5s, but we knew how those 2/5s made us feel, you know?
Hey, that's the important part. You know, that's the important part, man. Wow.
But I remember one time Mr. Bat told me something, and I asked him, I was like, hey, you know, I don't come from a musical family. And so I was always raised with this mentality of like, you know, you can't be a musician. Like, you know, how are you going to make money? Like, artists are broke, and, you know, all these, I call that the artist myth.
Right.
But I remember I asked Alvin Batiste one day, I was like, hey, you know, like, I was like, you know, how do you make money playing music? Like, how do you survive? How do you go through the daily life to day-to-day types of things? Like, did you get a job? Like, what did you do? And I remember he was like, well, I used to sell insurance, and I started teaching, and I composed, and, you know, I did all these things. And I was like, well, what is the best path for me? And he just looked at me and he goes, you're smart. You'll figure it out. And, you know, it was like, that was like some of the best advice I ever got in my life. Mm-hmm. Really. It was some of the best advice I ever got, because it empowered me to make a decision for my life. And it also he reminded me that I am a powerful person, you know, and I can make those choices myself.
See, those words right there is the reason I created this podcast, so that people around the world could hear stories like that from Mr. Bat, and stories like that from you, and all the other countless artists that I've interviewed and had the pleasure of talking to so far. Now, what I want to know is, how are you contributing? How are you paying that knowledge and that information forward in your community today? And do you have any educational projects on the horizon?
You know, I started teaching. Yeah, I remember being in a classroom at the Louis Armstrong Jazz Camp, and it was the year right after Hurricane Katrina, and it was we'll call it a transition year, because we were at a satellite location. Everything was, you know, life was very different after Katrina in New Orleans, and they had hired me as an intern in the camp, and I was in the classroom with like myself, Alvin Batiste, and maybe another clarinet student. And at some point, Mr. Bat would tell me like, okay, cool, like that. Now you take over the class, and he would watch me teach the other students, and then he would like make comments, like, you know, he would like chime in when he needed to. And so from that point, like, I've been in the classroom since I was 17 years old, teaching not only a student but as a teacher. And, you know, actually, I should rephrase that. I'm always a student in the classroom, and I feel like these opportunities, when I get to interact with young people, I'm learning just as much from them as they are from me. And so from that time at 17 years old, you know, I've been teaching every summer at this Louis Armstrong Jazz Camp. Again, I've been doing this educational outreach for about 10, 12 years now. I've taught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids at this point. And, you know, I understand from a young age. I understood how this tradition is passed on, and I was given a gift by Alvin Batiste, and it's my duty as a human being to repay that gift and keep the gift going, you know, for the rest of my life. And I do that by gaining experience myself, by learning, by becoming the best person I can be, and by sharing that information with all the people around me. So, you know, even today, you know, I'm going to go teach. And, you know, when we get off the phone right now, I'm going to the high school to go teach. And, you know, what's really amazing is I had an experience actually a couple weeks ago where I was giving a clarinet lesson to one of my students, and I was showing her the melody to Au Privat. And at one point, we were like working on this trill on the clarinet, and, you know, like, she just started laughing. It was like a very like genuine, like just a beautiful moment that we both kind of shared. And it was funny because in that moment, like, I had this flashback of like being the kid myself, sitting there in the room with Alvin Batiste. And it's like, you see these, I was like, wow, like this is the same experience, but being able to experience it from the other side was very powerful.
Yeah, man. Education, man. It's a beautiful thing, you know?
It's so important to educate yourself and to educate and to allow an opportunity for the other people around you to educate themselves too. Because you can't educate somebody.
Right. You gotta want that. Right. No, that's true. Yeah. You gotta, yeah, man. So check it out. Like, you know, also the other purpose of this podcast is for me to kind of decode what it takes to be a successful human being. And, you know, I definitely put you in that category. Any person that can play clarinet for a living is successful.
I'm going to take a sip of coffee to that. Cheers.
One great thing I love about you, man, like when I come to your house and I come into your room, there's Post-it notes everywhere with all kinds of like quotes and sayings. And, you know, most people use Post-it notes for reminders, but no, man, you come up, you like from all these books and things you're reading, you write down passages from these books on these Post-it notes. Why do you do that, and what effect does it have on your life?
I feel like I'm trying to retrain my mind right now. You know, right now I'm in a process of remembering, and I think also letting go of a lot of the BS I've picked up along the last couple of years. And so we have to remember that, like, you know, I am my best teacher. You know, there's teachers all around me, but ultimately, like, I'm the one that makes the decisions. And so, you know, by you know, these interactions, like these things, like these podcasts and books, and, you know, maybe I'll find you the quote, but there's a great quote in the back of this book called Think and Grow Rich. And Napoleon Hill wrote the book, and he says something along the lines of, you know, you are a combination of the people you know in your life. And now you and I, through reading this book, you and I have become friends, and you know me and I know you. And you've been, you know, kind of led into this new opportunity of how to live your life. And so, you know, the idea behind these Post-its is like, I feel like by every book I read, by every person I meet, by every CD I listen to, I'm expanding the who I am as a person. So these Post-its and things are a constant reminder of who I am, and I have to remind myself of that.
Man, that's a good one, man. I was just thinking yesterday, like, because of books like that and other books that I read, a lot of books I read because you suggest, right? I always constantly reevaluate the people who are around me, my friendships, my love ships, like everything. It's like, man, are these the type of people that I need to be around in order to maintain personal growth?
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's super important, man. It's like one of those things.
And that's the value of like what you're creating here. You know, a lot of people don't have access to Alvin Batiste. You know, again, being in New Orleans, it was a privilege for me to move here. You know, I didn't choose to move here. Life happened, and I ended up here. But some people who live in Kansas or India or Australia who don't have access to these people. And so with, you know, things like books and these podcasts and YouTube, you know, you really have an opportunity to meet these people and have access to the information that they share. And by hearing these words from other people, I think they really reaffirm who we want to be as people. You know, like this is a great like exercise where it's like, you know, you kind of like, you think of the people you admire the most. And a lot of times those people display qualities or characteristics that represent your best self, or how you see your best self. And the people that you hate the most, the people that you're angry with, all those kinds of things, those are the people that represent your worst self. Like when you're being on your bad days, or the parts of yourself you don't like, those people remind you of that.
It's a mirror, right? So
it's a mirror.
Man, you just mentioned Mr. Bat again. I want to get to one of his songs that you played on your most recent record, Words Are Not Enough, entitled Salty Dogs.
Yeah.
You want to check that one out?
Yeah, so it's cool. You know, the tune was actually originally recorded with Cannonball Adderley on his last CD called Lovers. And the song is called Salty Dogs. The lyrics go, I am free, salty dogs don't bother me. I got my head in the right place for the human race.
There it is. It's funny how it's funny how that the word salty is a popular like slang word now. You know what I mean? It's like,
Is it?
Yeah, it's like, you know, I was mad salty, or maybe it's a New York thing. I think, you know, maybe it's a nation. You never heard that?
No, man.
Okay. All right. Well, it don't matter. Here we go, Salty Dogs.
Man, we gotta get back in the studio, dude.
There it is, man. You know, that the power of community, the power of Mr. Bat, all of that is bringing us together today to hear this song. And you know, Frank, I never heard that song until you told me about it and we played it on this record, you know. Just to let people know, together we have created a camp. It's called Sanaa Art Collective. And, you know, I'll let you tell people a little bit about what's happening with that.
Man, so, I mean, again, this kind of started with an idea that I guess maybe I don't remember exactly how it started, but someone suggested, hey, man, you know, things aren't happening the way we would like to see them do it. And so if no one else is going to do it, we got to do it.
There it is.
You know, and, you know, I'm very much looking forward to having an opportunity to create this new, you know, this new camp or opportunity for other people to learn. And, you know, back to, you know, tying into the first thing you said about being a unicorn and playing clarinet, you know, I can just tell you right now how much shit I got my whole life for playing clarinet and wanting to play clarinet. You know, and I think a lot of the theme of my life has been creating opportunities. You know, not sitting back and waiting to receive opportunities, but also knowing how to create them. And so this camp is our version of that creation. You know, things are happening and maybe we're not 100% on board with the things that are going on now. So you know what? That's, instead of an opportunity for us to complain and bitch about how other people should or should not be doing things, now we have an opportunity to create.
There it is. I think it's important. People should never be afraid to create something or to fail at something. You know what I mean? It's better to attempt and fail than to not attempt and just, like, you know, have it just be whack. You know what I mean? Have, like, just leave your community to someone else. So
Totally.
You know, in this situation where we're making an effort to make things the way that we think they should be, for the benefit of people who are like us, who came up in situations that maybe they didn't have access to certain types of musicians or certain types of artists, and, you know, just to give access, really. At least that's where I'm coming from with this whole thing.
Totally. I mean, I think one of the greatest things that we can do is, you know, you use the word successful. So as a successful person, the most important thing I can do with my life is share that success with the people around me. And, you know, success is really a state of mind. And some of the things that the interactions I've had with people that mean the most to me are when I feel inspired, when I feel better, when I feel energized leaving an interaction. And you have to be a successful person to share that with other people.
Yeah.
You know, however it is you define success.
You know, we're coming to the end here. And every episode, as you know, I ask all my guests, what are they most thankful for? And I limit it to 3 things. So what are the 3 things you're most thankful for?
First and foremost, I'm most thankful for my health. You know, with this health, man, I think everything starts with a strong foundation in my health. You know, if I was sick with cancer, none of this stuff would happen. You know, or whatever it is, man. My health, and it's such a blessing to be healthy. I'm thankful for my community. I'm thankful for the people I call friends. I'm thankful for the people I call family. You know, it's just, man, I mean, these people never cease to amaze me and inspire me. So I'm so happy that I have an amazing community of people around me. You know, I think in some way, like, I don't know if thanks would be the right word, but man, I just would like to keep an open mind, you know, and I'm thankful for the many blessings I've had in my life, man. Really is what it is. There's just so many things. It's hard to narrow it down. But again, like this mindset that everything is a blessing. It's not just my iPad. It's not just my saxophone. It's not just like a gig or anything like that. Because everything that happens in my life is a blessing in some way. I may not be able to fully understand it in the moment, but it's, you know, everything has led me to this moment, and everything that's happening is leading me to another moment. And so I'm most of it, you know, I should just say I'm thankful for the moment.
There it is, man. I don't know if y'all noticed, but Greg is the reason for this podcast. He was the one. I was doing video series and interviewing people, and he was like, man, you should make sure it's a podcast. Like, you kept telling me, man, make sure it's a podcast. And then you even let me create like 10 episodes. Hey, man, make sure it's a podcast. And then I heeded your advice, and man, it's been great. You know, it's over 2,000 people subscribing and listening to this thing each week. It's been an amazing experience for me, man. And I just want to thank you for supporting me and giving me a sharp kick in the butt to move it to this format. You know what I mean?
Man, look, you've done the same for me so many times, and kicking my ass and making sure my ass is still in track too, you know? But, you know, I think a lot of our friendship is based on the fact that, like, you and I are both creators, and a lot of our lives have not been really handed to us, especially when it comes to this music and our careers. Like, you and I have really had to put in a lot of effort and creativity in making this happen. And, you know, we have spent thousands of hours in the practice rooms. We've spent thousands of hours studying. And, you know, I think it's the thing that you and I share is that our life is dedicated to the, you know, to pursuing mastery.
Yeah. I agree. Man, before we go though, I want to make sure people know where to check your music out, where to buy it, where to stay in touch with you, you know, your YouTube channel. Give me everything.
Bro, it's real simple. At Gregory Agid. GREGORYAGID. And Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, it's all at that handle.
Your website is gregoryagid.com, right? Y'all get on the internet, search Greg, look him up, write him a nice little message on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, leave a message on his website. Download his record on iTunes, Amazon. You can get it anywhere. And if you need a physical copy, you know, people still do that. I guess you can get it at CD Baby, or, you know what I mean? Just drop them a line, let them know you listen to the podcast, let them know what you think, good or bad.
Yeah, man. And y'all, thank you so much for listening. And, you know, we're all creators, we're all co-creators, and we're all creating this reality that we live in. So let's make it the best.
There it is, man. Yo, Greg, man, thanks for coming on the Working Artists Project. Yo, before we go, though, I want to listen to one more song off.
Man, let's play your song.
All right, we'll play mine. This one is called Hate and Love Cannot Coexist.
funny. I'm like listening to this right now, and I'm just like, man, you know, like, you know, you started the interview off with like you're unicorn and you play the clarinet. I'm
Right.
like, man, you know, like everything we do goes against what people thought was possible.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, right.
Like playing some avant-garde shit on the clarinet and it not sounding sad as fuck.
Right.
Seriously. And it's like, it's always been something like I've been fighting against, man, or something that I've been like, not fighting against, but like trying to convey that vision to other people. You know, I always knew it was possible, but convincing the other people that was possible was a little more difficult.
Yeah. 100%. Everyone wanted you to play some trad. They wanted you to be, you know, like Sidney Bechet or all these other people who came before you. But you had your own path. You have your own vision. You have your own sound.
But it's like, man, you know, like and those people's sounds are in my sound, man. So I love and respect the ancestors, man. They made it possible for me to be out here doing this. But it's like, you know, it's not just in the box, man. The box, it's sorry.
No. I just want to say I like how you talked over the bass solo. Wow. It's fucked up.
Sorry, man. That's what killing bass solo, though, man. That's too much fun.
Oh, and that's Jordan Pate on that soprano saxophone supporting Greg there. So funny, I listen to this and it's just like, man, it goes against like all stereotypes of the clarinet. Right.
It's like, man, I just remember as a kid, I remember as like a 14-year-old kid dreaming about what my tone would be when I was 30 years old. Mm-hmm. And like hearing that is like, it's what it is, you know?
Yeah. It's so, you know, it's interesting that the paths that our lives take over time, you know, it's never what you think it is, ever. Even when you try to force it into this little place, life has a funny way of saying no.
Or yes.
Or yes.
And that's even scarier.
Right. Exactly.
What happens when life says yes?
You know what? On that note, thank y'all for listening to the Working Artist Project. And Greg, thank you for coming on, baby.
And thank you, Darrian.
Later. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Working Artist Project. Before you go, I need you to do a few more things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on iTunes and Facebook. I would love to connect with each and every one of you. It would also be awesome if you guys could check out my Patreon page. The link will be in the description. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.